The crimson talon cut through the void like a blade through silk, its hull scarred from 100 battles. Captain Lyra stood on the observation deck, her coffee mug steaming in her hands, a luxury she'd insisted on when she'd agreed to serve as the human liaison aboard this Krevtar warship. She was the only human among 300 alien warriors, each standing over 7 feet tall with obsidian scales and eyes that glowed like embers. It had been 6 months since Earth's alliance with the Krevtar Dominion, and Lyra had learned to navigate their rigid military culture. They respected strength, honored loyalty, and viewed emotion as a weakness to be purged. She'd earned her place through tactical brilliance during the siege of Proxima, but she remained an outsider. Tolerated, not embraced. That changed the day she found Rex. The supply raid on the abandoned colony of Earth 9 was supposed to be routine. While the warriors secured the perimeter, Lyra explored what remained of the residential sector. That's when she heard it, a soft, pitiful whine coming from beneath collapsed debris. She dug through the rubble with her bare hands, ignoring the sharp edges cutting her palms. Beneath a shattered beam she found him, a Krevtar cub, no more than 3 cycles old. His scales dull from malnutrition, his ember eyes barely flickering. "Hey there, little one," Lyra whispered, carefully lifting him free. He was light, too light. His tiny claws wrapped around her finger and something in her chest cracked open. When she returned to the ship carrying the cub, the crew's reaction was immediate and hostile. Commander Vexthor, the ship's second-in-command, blocked her path to the med bay. "That creature is not Dominion," he growled, his voice like grinding stone. "It bears no clan markings. It is nothing." "He's a child," Lyra shot back, her voice steel. "And I'm taking him to medical." "Move, Commander." Their eyes locked. The entire hangar bay fell silent. Finally, Vexthor stepped aside, but his expression promised this wasn't over. In the med bay, the ship's physician confirmed what Lyra had suspected. Rex was an orphan from a fringe colony, likely left behind during an evacuation. Without clan affiliation, Krevtar law deemed him Krevnash, the abandoned. He had no rights, no protection, no future. "Then I claim him," Lyra declared. The physician's eyes widened. "You cannot." "You are not. I don't care what your laws say about species. I'm claiming responsibility for him." Word spread through the ship like wildfire, and the human had adopted an abandoned cub. Some called it madness. Others called it an insult to Krevtar tradition. But Lyra didn't care. She set up a small quarters for Rex adjacent to her own, requisitioned proper nutrition supplements, and began teaching him basic words in both English and Krevtar. Rex thrived under her care. His scales regained their luster, shifting to a deep emerald green. His eyes burned bright with curiosity. He followed Lyra everywhere, to the bridge during her shifts, to the mess hall, even to tactical meetings where he'd sit quietly in the corner, watching everything with intelligent eyes. The crew watched too. They watched how Lyra would stop mid-sentence during briefings to check if Rex had eaten. They watched how she'd carry him on her shoulders through the corridors, his tiny claws gripping her uniform. They watched how she'd sit up through the night when he had fever dreams, singing soft human lullabies until he calmed. One evening, young warrior Kessera approached Lyra in the mess hall. The female Krevtar stood rigid, clearly uncomfortable. "Captain," Kessera began, her voice uncertain, "I have a question about the cub." Lyra looked up from helping Rex practice holding a utensil. "Go ahead. How do you know what he needs?" "He does not speak much yet." "How do you understand?" Lyra smiled. "You pay attention. You learn his sounds, his moods. When he chirps, he's happy. When he's quiet, something's wrong. It's not complicated, you just have to care enough to notice." Kessera's expression shifted, something vulnerable crossing her features. "I have a younger sibling. In the Dominion nurseries. I have not seen him since I joined this crew 2 years ago. That is our way." "That doesn't have to be your way," Lyra said softly. The conversation spread. More warriors began approaching Lyra with questions about family, about caring for young ones, about emotions they'd been taught to suppress. She answered them all with patience, sharing human perspectives on parenthood, connection, and love. 3 months after finding Rex, Lyra woke to find her quarters door wouldn't open. Frowning, she overrode the lock and stepped into the corridor, and froze. The entire crew stood outside, all 300 Krevtar warriors, From the lowest-ranked fighter to Commander Vexthor himself. They stood in formation, but something was different. Many held small tokens. Carved figures, pressed flowers from the hydroponics bay. Handmade blankets. Rex peeked out from behind her legs, chirping curiously. Young Kesra stepped forward first, kneeling to present a small, carefully wrapped package. "For the cub," she said. "And thank you. I spoke with my sibling yesterday. First time in 2 years. One by one they came forward. Warriors who'd barely acknowledged her existence now knelt, offering gifts, sharing stories of younglings they'd left behind, of families they'd forgotten in pursuit of honor and duty. Commander Vexthor was last. The massive warrior stood before Lyra, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he lowered himself to one knee. "We have watched you, human," he said, his voice carrying through the corridor. "We have seen what we forgot, what we were taught to forget." He glanced at Rex, then back to Lyra. "Among Krevtar there is a word, Krevmara. It means one who remembers the heart of the clan, one who keeps the soul of the people alive." He placed his clawed hand over his chest in a gesture of deepest respect. "You have shown us this. You have reminded us that strength without compassion is merely cruelty, that warriors can also be—" He struggled with the human word, "family." Lyra's throat tightened as Vexthor continued. "The crew has voted unanimously. We ask that you accept the title of Krevmara of the Crimson Talon." His ember eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw warmth there. "We ask that you be—" "Mom," Rex chirped happily, climbing up to Lyra's shoulder. She looked at the assembled warriors, these battle-hardened soldiers who'd learned to smile again, to speak of their families, to embrace the parts of themselves they'd buried. "I accept," Lyra said, her voice thick with emotion. "On one condition," Vexthor tilted his head. "We start a new tradition. Once a week, anyone who wants to can call home. Talk to your younglings, your siblings, your parents. No more forgetting." The corridor erupted in deep rumbling sounds. Krevtar laughter, something rarely heard on warships. As the crew dispersed, chattering excitedly about the first family call night, Rex nuzzled against Lyra's cheek. She scratched behind his ear spines, watching her crew, her family, walk away lighter than they'd been in years. "What do you think, Rex?" she whispered. "Think we started something?" The cub chirped in agreement, and somewhere in the vastness of space the Crimson Talon flew on. No longer just a warship, but a home.